Alrighty, alrighty. Hey everyone, Lori Swanson here, CEO of Inspire Tech and founder of Career Alchemy Academy, coming to you live as I do most every week, most always 1 o'clock Central Time, here at Career Alchemy Live broadcast. So, what I like to do is just talk about things that are impacting women in work, giving thoughts and ideas, advice, processes, ways to contend with uh, challenges at work, and also connect with the work you're meant to be doing, sort of like being more genuine and authentic, bringing that more into the work that you're doing. Or if you aren't able to do that, helping you transition into something that's more aligned with who you are today and how you'd like to work and who you'd like to work with, right? Like all of those things you get to decide, and then, you know, put together a plan to create kind of this ideal career for yourself, to the best of our abilities. And I know that sometimes when I talk about that, it can feel like, yeah, right. It's the ideal isn't real. Um, but there is something to dreaming big. And what is that quote? Like, reach for the stars and you might end up at the moon, right? So that's the philosophy I like to think about when we're creating a career path for ourselves and where we're going next. Is that, let's dream big. Let's create. I did yesterday with one of my coaching clients, we created a job description. I call it your ideal role description of, not necessarily what was practical, but it was what would feel most ideal for her. Who she was working with, where she was working, how she was working, like what were the standard hours, how much was she getting paid, what was the culture like, what were her roles and responsibilities, like you would see in any job description. And so that was, so that's really what I like to help people do is dream big, create a career of impact that feels nourishing, energizing, and fun. And we do that by starting, like I said, like creating this vision, and then believing it's possible. And wherever we land, it's just so much better because we've dreamed, about a possibility bigger than perhaps we're seeing right now. So that was a long introduction, but that's what I was thinking about today as I jumped on here is I was thinking about the ideal role description exercise I went through yesterday and how much fun it is to dream big. So, but today what I want to talk to you about specifically, and it's in a way it's related, but I call it how to take 100% responsibility for your career dust-ups. So, one of the hardest lessons that I ever learned was about taking 100% responsibility for a conflict between myself and another person, especially because this other person was really irritating to me. And so, and it started with, years ago, or where this specific topic stemmed from is I was thinking about years ago when I was running my recruiting firm still, and not doing the career coaching like I am now. When I was running the recruiting firm, and we'd have our annual sort of vision meetings and planning and strategic meetings with my team, and I was preparing for that, and we had been talking in preparation. There had been conversations about different things that they might like to see in the coming year, and so I'm creating this presentation that I'm going to give at the lunch, and where all of us are together and gathered. And ahead of that, a big meeting, there were a couple of changes that I didn't want to wait until the meeting. Like I wanted us to start implementing them, right away because I felt like they were that important, and that significant to where we were going. And so I sent out an email and I, said, hey, yeah, we're having this meeting coming up, but ahead of that, there's a couple things that I want to put in place or start to put in place that we can talk about at our next, we have morning meetings, right? But we can talk about them at the morning meetings, but I wanted to give you a heads up and let you know that I'm going to start, you're going to start to see some of these changes based on these two things. And I felt, like it was, it was really, they were good changes, and I thought they were going to really have a positive impact on their revenue, their salaries, the compensation they were making. So I was super excited about it. Um, but so I sent out the email, right? And then I get this email back from one of my employees. And even though I was feeling super, super excited, she was not so much. She was a little angry. And she let me know, she let me know in the email. And as soon as I read her email, I thought, and this isn't about communication, yes, there's different ways to communicate, and email's not always the most effective or the best course of action, and might be true here, and we'll talk about that. But in this case, as I'm reading her response, I can feel my like self like getting pissed off, and thinking to myself, wait a second, ultimately, this is my business. I get to decide what directions we're moving. I am the boss. I want to include you in some things, but there are some things that I just get to decide. And I get to trust my instincts because I am running a business and you're not, right? So these were my thoughts. And, and also other thoughts like, why are you bringing this up now in response to the email I sent when you could have been bringing up some of these? Because some of the things she was saying, I was like, this is what I've been asking for the last few weeks as I'm preparing for this, input on these different things. And you didn't give me any of that then. So I didn't have that as part of the context that as I was making plans. And so I was kind of pissed off about that. And, you know, um, and why wasn't she seeing the powerful impact that these changes could be making? Like why was, she focused on the change itself instead of the result that might really be, because I like to think that when I'm making changes, that I'm making them in response to things that aren't working well, and creating solutions that are going to work better going forward. Of course, it isn't always true, but how do you know, right? It's a scientific method. We come up with a hypothesis and we try it and see what works and keep doing more of that. And what doesn't work, we get rid of that. And that was just, has always been my kind of way of growing and changing the business. So yeah, underneath everything, I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling defensive for sure. I was disappointed, like I was excited and to get, how it is, and you're super excited to tell someone some news and they come back like, blah, blah, you know, um, and you don't get the response you were hoping for. So I was feeling deflated, and disappointed about all of that and hurt. And, but as I was feeling all of those things, I remembered, um, a tool that I had learned through a hard lesson that I had had involving a parking ticket and my therapist, who I wanted to make blame for the parking ticket and make him pay for it. So, and I had written about this or talked about it with Michelle Kelly, who you can find her information out on LinkedIn. K plus L Storytellers is her business, and she helps companies tell their stories. And she had asked me to tell one bold story, and this is the one I told. And it was this day that I had a therapy appointment, and I had the same day and time for years, several years, few years, and same, and so I would arrive on time and a few minutes ahead, and then we'd start on time, and then it was a 50-minute appointment, and then I'd have, you know, a total of 1 hour, right? And so because they were in downtown Chicago, I'd park my car, feed my meter, get up there right before 1 o'clock, do my session, and then leave it, get back to my car by 5 to 2. So I always was, it was like clockwork for a very, very long time. This particular day, I did exactly what I normally do, and I'm sitting in the waiting room waiting for my 1 o'clock, and now it's 1:05, and now it's 1:10, and I'm sort of like, did I have the wrong day? It's always the same day and time, and I can hear him talking to somebody, another client, in their office, and I thought, did he just lose track of time? What should I do? Should I knock on the door? Should I get someone to help me? Like all of this stuff. And then about 1:10, he comes out, apologizes, about the delay, and says, still do your full session, your 50 minutes. But, this was something I needed to tend to, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So I go in, we do our session. I get out of the session probably around 2:05, something like that. I get downstairs, and sure as, the dickens, I have a parking ticket. And then I'm pissed. I'm like, look, I'm there on time. This is clockwork like every week. I don't want to pay this ticket. It's expensive parking ticket in downtown Chicago just for the meter. And so all week before my next session, I'm sort of steaming about this, and of course talking to my husband about it, and anyone who will listen, and getting myself all worked up. Come in with the ticket the next session, and I'm like, look, hey, last time, because you were late, you made me late, and that got me a ticket, and I think you should pay for it. And part of my justification for that was, if I'm late for a session or I don't show up for a session, they don't extend my session. And they also, if I miss a session without 24 hours notice, they they charge me for it. So I thought this seemed really fair, right? Like, hey, you should pay for this ticket because it was on you. And his first response, and some people might think this is like him deflecting or whatever, but I really saw it as him supporting me. And he said, okay, he acknowledged I was upset, and he said, but if you were to take 100% responsibility for this situation, what would that look like? What could that mean? And that, for me, again, I did not see it as him not taking responsibility. What I saw him was adjusting, giving me the power back, that I didn't have to wait for him to do anything, that I could be empowered in this process. So let me just, because this is not an easy concept. Believe me, this is not easy, because we, I think naturally get defensive, if something doesn't go right, or we have a consequence like a parking ticket, we want to, figure out if we don't take, if it isn't so obviously our fault, let's say, but there's other circumstances, we want to pass the blame a little bit and let someone else take responsibility. I just think it's kind of normal to do that. And what I realized was, I'm certified as a mindset coach, right? And what I realized was that I could use my mindset coaching tool called the mindset method that I teach my clients in order to understand what it meant to take 100% responsibility. So with the mindset method, it starts with the idea that all circumstances they're true. You can't argue with them. They're absolutely fact. I got a parking ticket, right? Or in the case of my employee, I sent an email and my employee wasn't happy and responded back. My employee was mad. Like, that circumstance was true. I did send an email and my employee was mad. We're not arguing. No, she wouldn't argue with it. I wouldn't argue with it. Someone on the sidelines would not argue with that. So a circumstance is always neutral in that case. There's no emotion behind it. It's just the truth. But it's how we think, feel, act, and the outcomes we get that stem from the circumstance. So it's really how we're thinking about the circumstance that creates how we're feeling about something, and how we're feeling about something informs the actions that we take that ultimately give us certain results, right? And so in this case, the circumstance was I sent that email. You could talk about the parking ticket, but let's go back to the employee email. So I learned it from the parking ticket, and what I learned was that there was a lot of things I could have done differently. Like when I recognized we were running late, I could have knocked on the door, which I didn't. I could have just gone and fed a couple more quarters, really, into the meter. I didn't, and there were reasons. I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to interrupt someone else's session. Oh, if I run downstairs, what if he comes out and then doesn't see me and thinks I'm not here and then goes to lunch?" Like I, had all these reasons why I shouldn't go and do some different things. But I could have also wrote a note and said, "Just feeding the meter, be right back," And so there's just things we can do to take responsibility and not feel like we have to blame or defend or justify. So here we have this circumstance where I sent an email and the reaction was less than positive from one of my team members, and everything that's neutral and that's it. Everything else, how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, the actions I'm taking, the results I'm getting, all of those are coming from how I'm thinking about the circumstance. Everything just waterfalls down from there. And boy, did I have thoughts about my employee and how they handle this situation. But the real goal when you're taking 100% responsibility is to be in a place of peace. And so, of course, if I'm in defense mode or justify mode or blame mode, that is the opposite of being in peace. And that's why we want to take 100% responsibility, is we want to learn how to be 100% in peace in all moments, regardless of the circumstances. And that doesn't mean that there wasn't something done improperly or wrong, or that the person shouldn't have reacted as the way, it isn't like abdicating the other person. People talk about the same sort of philosophy when you talk about forgiving someone, how it's for you, it's not for them. This is the same thing. 100% responsibility is not about them. It's about your peace and your desire to be in peace in every moment. And so when you're completely willing to take 100% responsibility, one of the things I found out when I started to play around with this idea was that as long as the first thing I noticed was I was willing to take 100% responsibility as long as they were willing to take 100% or some level of responsibility. But again, that's you needing to involve other parties. And when you take 100% responsibility, the only person that's involved is you, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. Those are the only things that are involved. And so, but I noticed that, and I think that's common as well. It's like something happens, there's a dust up between you and employee, and then there's this dust up, and then you have to you want to take your responsibility. Well, I could have done this better and I could have done that better, but they could have done this and they could have done that. And you can see how it isn't 100% at that point. That's more of a negotiation. Like, I'm willing to own my part if you're willing to own your part. That's a negotiation. That's not 100% responsibility. And so true 100% responsibility, at least in the way I've come to understand it, has nothing to do with whether the other person changes, apologizes, sees my side, takes accountability for their side, has any sort of personal evolution, like none of that matters in 100% responsibility. Um, because if you're requiring that in order for you to be at peace, that's not only is that annoying, but it's very difficult because we don't control other people. We only can have control over how we're thinking and feeling and the actions we're taking. And so you have to kind of get past all of that. And because we really want the other person to sort of see our side. Um, but if you can let go of that, you can see how, not have that be a requirement of your piece. Like they don't have to see my side. They don't have to do, like I said, change, evolve. They don't have to do any of that. And they certainly don't have to own up on anything. That's on them. What's on you is I want to be in peace. And so I'm going to take 100% responsibility for this circumstance that occurred that created a dust up. So now I have someone else involved who's not happy, but I'm going to take 100% responsibility. And so I did, like, at first, there was a lot of this, I wanted co-ownership of the responsibility. I was mentally defending myself. I was certainly externally talking to people about the situation and getting them on my side, right? I, had all kinds of rehearsal conversations with this person going on in my head about how I was going to make them see why I did something. But then, and I knew, in fact, that I could have certainly done some things differently. Could have communicated the changes differently, not through email. I could have brought the team together. I could have, instead of like saying, this is what's going to happen, it could have been more of, I'm thinking about this. Help me understand what I'm not seeing. How might this impact you in a positive way? Are there any challenges to this? Like I could have done that. And that would have probably been a better pathway. I could have slowed down more. I could have not let, I can, and I know this is true for me, is my excitement about something and my enthusiasm about something can get in the way of my awareness of other people. I have a cold, so apologize for that. But I could have, that can happen with me. And so slowing down and not letting that carry the message, but instead getting more, again, even as I'm considering delivering a message, getting more back into that core of peace, right? So even though I could see what I could have done differently, it isn't about making me the villain or them the villain. It's absolutely about taking responsibility. I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently. It might have had a different impact, but we don't know, right? We don't know. 9 of the other employees, as far as I know, weren't reacting the same way as this employee. I didn't get any feedback back from them, and I didn't notice any sort of like this person's just being the voice for everybody. How that happens. This was just this person's reaction. So taking 100% responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself, and it certainly doesn't mean shaming yourself. It doesn't mean pretending that the other person had no role. It doesn't mean falling on your sword, and apologizing. It's none of that. It means managing your mind and stewarding your emotions, so that you can remain in the zone of peace. So it means recognizing that your peace cannot depend on someone else's suddenly becoming self-aware. It can't depend on that. It means no longer rigidly defending your stand and justifying your stance, because that is sort of like trying to win a case, and you can't get to that zone of peace while simultaneously building a case for your innocence, right? Getting other people to agree with you or getting them to apologize, or really even you taking 100% responsibility in a way in which you make yourself the victim or the bad person. because again, that is not a peaceful place to be. And trust me, I've tried all of the methods. I've tried all the methods. So what I eventually realized is that taking 100% responsibility is actually incredibly empowering, requires vigilance, and it's just me and my thoughts and my, like desire to get to peace. And that, uh, you know, and that even if I've done something that's hurt or angered somebody else, um, I certainly will take responsibility by apologizing where I should, right? That's absolutely part of an action I'll take. But how I'm thinking about myself, so your thoughts lead to how you're feeling leads to actions. You don't want to take actions when you're in this place of rigidly defending your stand or complete shame and blame on yourself. That isn't where you want to take action from. You want to take action from this place of, yes, I could have done things differently. I'm going to own that. I'm going to, you know, uh, offer some other alternatives, actions that we can take now. But whether they receive it or not isn't my business. So not waiting for someone else to change before I feel better means I get more quickly into my center of peace, means I get my power back, and that I stop handling like my emotional state, handing it over to someone else. Like I'm the steward of my emotions. I'm responsible for what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, the actions I'm taking. And so I don't have to wait for someone else to come over to my side or see my perspective, or have empathy for me in order to be in a place of peace. And that's really what I think 100% responsibility is all about. 100%, not 80, and they get 20, not 90, and they get, 10, not 99, and they have to take one. It's like, I'm 100% responsible for this situation. And when I decide that I'm going to be 100% responsible for what I know I could have done differently and take actions in order because I want to, um, you know, uh, change, I want to, I've got more information now, right? This person was mad at me. So now I'm going to take some different actions, but not out of fear or blame or justifying, not out of any of those places. But I get to my place of peace and I say, these are the actions I want to take out of this place of peace. I want to apologize to them. I want to take accountability for, that I could have done some things differently. And I'm not responsible for them continuing to feel angry or mad or anything. That's not my responsibility. They can continue to feel all of that and they can do work or not do work on their own peace. But I'm going to come to them in a place of peace and I'm going to say, and this is what I'm going to do, or, have some more communication about this. Like, well, we're not going to implement the changes right now. Let's sit down and let's talk about some things that I wasn't aware of, that I didn't think of, when I let my enthusiasm kind of take over. So when I take 100% responsibility, when you take 100% responsibility that for all the circumstances that are happening in your life, you're 100% in the driver's seat, you're 100% empowered, and you're 100% at peace. So that's my encouragement. Like, practice, just see what it means. Because again, and I try to talk about, like, I know when I'm out of peace and when I'm in peace. So when I'm out of peace, you can, if there's a situation, a dust up that's happened with a colleague at work, if I'm out of peace, it's because I'm rigidly defending my stand, trying to justify my stance. I'm trying to get them to see my side. All of those things are non-peaceful. So if that's happening, you have to come back and say, it isn't anything to do with them. It's like, how can I take 100% responsibility for my peace? I know I could have done some of these things better. I'm willing to take action and apologize and sit down and create a new plan. They might still continue to be upset and mad and want to shame me and blame me, but I'm at peace. So I know that I've taken the responsibility that I feel I should. And again, let them continue to see what they can do with their own emotions and find new thoughts. My big thought is, I'm meant to live in peace. That's something I got from Martha Beck, and I can't remember who she got it from, but that we are meant to live in peace. And so taking 100% responsibility for everything that's occurring in my life, and for any dust ups I cause, without shame and blame and justification and defensiveness, is so much more peaceful. So that's it for today. And peace, like I always say. And follow the QR code, sign up for Career Alchemy Academy, schedule a call with me. We talk about your how to take 100% responsibility for your next career move, without taking any of the ick with you, because it's going to be just a peaceful process all along. And that's it. Talk to you soon. Thank you for spending some time with me, live or on video.